Gene stepped off the transport ship and looked around the massive space station. His mouth fell open. The ceiling stretched so high he could barely see it. Strange lights flickered in patterns he did not understand. The air smelled like metal and something sweet. "Stay close," said Na, his partner. She held a small device that would translate their words. "Remember what we practiced?" Gene nodded. They had studied for months before coming here. Earth had received an invitation to join the Galactic Confederation. It was the chance of a lifetime. Humans would finally meet other intelligent life forms. The doors in front of them were huge. They were made of some kind of blue metal that seemed to glow. As Gene and Na approached, the doors slid open with a soft hiss. The room beyond took Jin's breath away. It was filled with creatures he had only seen in pictures. Some were tall and thin like walking sticks. Others had multiple arms and eyes. A few floated in the air without touching the ground. "The humans have arrived," announced a voice that sounded like grinding stones. All the creatures turned to look at them. Gene felt very small. Na squeezed his arm gently. A massive creature stepped forward. It had 4 arms and stood 3 times taller than Gene. Its skin looked like gray stone. Red eyes glowed in what might have been its face. "I am General Krex of the Zephyrian military," it said. Its voice was deep and loud. "We welcome you to the Confederation. Though I wonder if your small species will prove useful in our diplomatic work." Several other creatures made sounds that might have been laughter. Gene felt his face grow hot. But Na stepped forward with a smile. "General Krex," she said. "It is an honor to meet you. I understand your daughter recently completed her first flight ceremony. How did it go?" The entire room went quiet. General Krex's 4 eyes grew wide. He stared at Na as if she had grown extra heads. "You know about my daughter?" he asked slowly. "Of course," Gene said, finding his voice. "We learned about Zephyrian culture before coming here. The first flight ceremony is very important. It means a young Zephyrian is ready to join the military ranks." "But how did you know about my specific daughter?" Krex asked. Na pulled out a small tablet. "We studied the public records. We wanted to understand each delegate as an individual. Your daughter Zara completed her ceremony just 2 weeks ago. The report said she flew for 6 straight hours. That must have made you very proud." The general's stone-like face seemed to soften. She flew longer than any young Zephyrian in 50 years. I was indeed proud." A creature with blue skin and tentacles for arms floated over to them. "I am Council Member Vel of the Aquatic Dominion. You researched all of us." "We tried to," Gene said. "We know you recently became a parent for the first time. Congratulations. We read that Aquatic Dominion children are born knowing how to swim. That must be amazing to see." Vel's tentacles quivered with what seemed like pleasure. "Yes, my offspring swam immediately. It was beautiful. But why do you care about such personal things?" "Because that is who you are," Na explained. "You are not just Council Member Vel. You are a new parent. You have hopes and fears for your child. When we understand who you are as a person, we can work together better." A small creature with many eyes and a shell-like back scurried forward. "I am Trade Representative Kix of the Merchant Guild. What do you know about me?" Gene looked at his notes. "You started as a small trader on the Outer Rim. You built your business by being honest with customers. Your home planet suffered from food shortages when you were young. That is why you now make sure food supplies are shared fairly across the galaxy." Kix's many eyes blinked rapidly. "No diplomat has ever mentioned my childhood before. They only care about trade numbers." "Numbers are important," Na agreed. "But they do not tell us why those numbers matter to you. Your childhood explains why you work so hard to prevent hunger." General Krex looked around at the other delegates. "This is most unusual. Our diplomatic meetings usually focus on laws and territories and resources." "Those things matter too," Gene said. "But we believe good agreements come from understanding each other first. When we know what you care about, we can find solutions that work for everyone." A tall, thin creature with silver skin stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Lux of the Crystal Collective. Our species shares thoughts directly. We do not understand this focus on individual stories." "That must be wonderful," Na said with genuine interest. "To share thoughts with others of your kind. But it might also be lonely when dealing with species like us who cannot share that connection." Ambassador Lux paused. "I had not considered that perspective. Yes, it can be isolating." The room buzzed with quiet conversations as the different species talked among themselves. Gene heard fragments of discussion about this new approach to diplomacy. General Krex raised one of his massive arms for silence. Humans, he said, his voice now carrying respect instead of mockery. Your species is small and appears weak. But perhaps there is strength in what you do. We will watch your performance with great interest. Jean and Na looked at each other and smiled. They had passed the first test. But they both knew this was only the beginning. The real work would start tomorrow when they faced their first diplomatic challenge. As they left the Great Hall, Jean heard one delegate whisper to another, "Did you see how they looked at us? Like we actually mattered as individuals?" "Most strange," came the reply. "Most strange indeed." 3 months had passed since Jean and Na first arrived at the space station. They had watched other diplomats work. They had studied how the galaxy handled disputes. Now they faced their first real test. The Confederation Council chamber was packed with worried faces. Chancellor Vex stood at the center, his blue skin darker than usual. He looked tired. "The Zephyrian-Gilak conflict has reached a breaking point," he announced. 3 star systems are at war. Thousands have died. 17 different diplomatic teams have tried to solve this. All have failed. Jean looked across the room at General Krex. The massive Zephyrian stone face showed anger. On the other side sat Elder Tomas of the Gilak. His 6 arms were crossed and his orange eyes glowed with fury. "The Gilak stole our sacred territory," Krex growled. "They mine our holy sites. This cannot be forgiven." "We bought those systems fairly," Tomas shot back. His voice was sharp and high. "The Zephyrians attack our workers. They are animals." Chancellor Vex raised his hand for silence. Both sides refused to compromise. War fleets gather at the border. Soon this conflict will spread across the galaxy. The room fell quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. The first galactic war in 1,000 years. "We would like to try," Na said softly. Every head turned toward her. Many delegates shook their heads. A few made sounds of disbelief. "You are new here," said Ambassador Lux of the Crystal Collective. "This conflict is beyond solving. The wisest diplomats in the galaxy have failed." "Maybe," Jean said, standing up. "But we would still like to try." Chancellor Vex studied them for a long moment. "Very well. You have 2 weeks before the war fleets attack. Do not waste our time with the same failed approaches." The next day Jean and Na did something that surprised everyone. Instead of staying on the space station to study reports, they left. They took transport ships to the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet was red and rocky. Strong winds blew dust everywhere. Tall mountains reached toward the sky. Jean could see why the Zephyrians valued strength and flight. They met with Zephyrian war chiefs in their mountain fortresses. They sat through honor ceremonies. They learned the ancient songs about courage and duty. "Tell us about the sacred sites," Na asked during one meeting. War Chief Dara spread her 4 arms wide. "Those mountains contain the first nest. Where our species learned to fly. Where we first touched the sky. The Gilak destroy everything with their mining." Jean wrote careful notes. "These sites are important because they connect you to your history." "More than history," Dara said. "They are our souls." After 5 days, Jean and Na traveled to the Gilak homeworld. This planet was covered in green oceans under purple skies. The Gilak lived in floating cities that moved with the tides. Elder Nyx welcomed them to his trading house. His 6 arms gestured as he spoke. The Gilak were natural merchants. They loved to bargain and deal. "We paid good money for those mining rights," Nyx explained. "The Zephyrians' own government sold them to us. Now they attack our workers. It is bad for business." "But the Zephyrians say those places are sacred," Na said carefully. Nyx made a dismissive gesture. "They call everything sacred when it suits them. We have contracts. Legal documents. They mean nothing to warriors." Jean noticed something strange in the trading house. Ancient items covered the walls. Old tools and artwork from different planets. "You collect historical items," he observed. "Of course," Nyx said with pride. "The Gilak preserve the past. We save treasures from across the galaxy. Each piece tells a story." "Even Zephyrian artifacts?" Na asked. Nyx's orange eyes brightened. He led them to a special room. Beautiful crystal sculptures filled glass cases. They seemed to glow with inner light. "Zephyrian flight crystals," Nyx explained. "Made by their ancient artists. Very rare. Very valuable." Jean stared at the crystals. Something about them seemed familiar. "Where did you get these?" "Found them in the mining operations. The mountains are full of them. We preserve them here instead of letting them crumble." Na and Jean looked at each other. A crazy idea was forming. They spent the next 3 days researching in Gilak archives. Ancient trade records filled dusty data banks. Finally, they found what they were looking for. The transport back to the space station felt very long. Jean and Na reviewed their notes again and again. They were either about to solve an impossible puzzle or make fools of themselves. The emergency council session was tense. War fleets from both sides had moved closer to the disputed systems. Time was running out. Well? Chancellor Vex demanded. What is your solution? Jean stood up. His hands were shaking. The conflict is not about territory. It is about a misunderstanding from 300 years ago. General Krex roared with anger. Nonsense. The Gulak steal our sacred lands. The Gulak were trying to preserve your sacred artifacts, Na said quickly. 3 centuries ago, Elder Tomas's ancestor made a deal with a Zephyrian governor. The Gulak would mine the mountains carefully and save any flight crystals they found. She activated a holographic display. Ancient documents appeared in the air. The Zephyrian governor was supposed to explain this to the warrior clans. But he died in an accident before he could. The clans never learned about the preservation agreement. Elder Tomas leaned forward. You mean my people have been saving Zephyrian treasures all this time? Yes, Jean said. The Gulak have the largest collection of preserved Zephyrian flight crystals in the galaxy. Your ancestors were honored to be guardians of Zephyrian culture. General Krex's 4 eyes were wide. Our crystals, they are safe? More than safe, Na said. Preserved with great care and respect. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Elder Tomas spoke carefully. Perhaps we could create a new agreement. Joint cultural preservation zones. Gulak expertise in artifact conservation. Zephyrian guidance on sacred sites. General Krex nodded slowly. This would honor both our peoples. Within hours, both war fleets had stopped their advance. The impossible mediation was complete. News of the Zephyrian Gulak peace spread quickly across the galaxy. Soon, requests for human mediators arrived every day. The biggest request came from an unexpected source. Director ZYX of the Trasian Mining Consortium stood before the Confederation Council. His metallic skin gleamed under the lights. His red eyes burned with frustration. 12 mining worlds are in revolt, he announced. Workers refuse to mine. Production has stopped. Traditional negotiators cannot solve this problem. We request human intervention. Chancellor Vex looked surprised. The Trasian Consortium was known for harsh business practices. They cared only about profits and power. Very well, the Chancellor said. Han Li and Bin Cho will handle this case. Han was a quiet man with kind eyes. Bin was taller and spoke more boldly. They had worked together for many years on Earth before joining the diplomatic corps. Director ZUX met them in his gleaming office aboard the main mining station. Charts covered the walls showing profit numbers and resource extractions. The solution is simple, ZYX declared. Force the workers back to their jobs. Increase daily quotas by 15%. Cut worker benefits by 20%. This will restore profits quickly. We would like to visit the mining sites first, Han said politely. ZYX's red eyes narrowed. What? The numbers tell you everything you need to know. Numbers are important, Bin agreed. But they do not tell us why the workers stopped working. Who cares why? ZYX snapped. Workers exist to work. That is all. Han and Bin exchanged glances. This would be harder than they thought. The transport ship to Mining World 7 took 3 hours. Han looked out the window as they descended through thick clouds. The planet's surface was covered with deep holes and tall machines. The sky was brown with dust. At the landing platform they met Supervisor Kress. He was a thin alien with green skin and multiple arms. Thank goodness you are here, Kress said. The workers have gone crazy. They refuse to enter the mines. They make impossible demands. What do they want? Bin asked. Ridiculous things, Kress waved his arms. Better air filters. Shorter work shifts. Time to visit their families. These things cost money. Han nodded thoughtfully. May we speak with the workers? Kress looked confused. Why would you want to do that? To understand their concerns, Han explained. The worker housing was located far from the supervisor buildings. Long metal buildings stretched across dusty ground. Han and Bin walked between them, noting the broken windows and rusty walls. A crowd of workers gathered around them. They were from many different species. All looked tired and thin. Are you here to force us back to work? Asked a worker with blue skin and sad eyes. No, Bin said gently. We are here to listen. The workers looked surprised. Many began talking at once. The air in the mines is poison, said one worker. We have not seen our families in 6 months, said another. The safety equipment is broken, added a third. Han pulled out a notebook. Tell us more about these problems. For the next 2 hours, Han and Bin listened. They wrote down every complaint. They asked questions about families and homes and dreams. A worker named Vex had not seen his children in 8 months. Another worker, Mora, showed them scars from a mining accident caused by faulty equipment. An older worker named Tal explained how the air filters had not been changed in 2 years. Would you show us the mines? Han asked. The workers looked shocked. You want to go down there? Yes, Bin said. We need to see your working conditions. The mine shaft was dark and hot. Han and Bin put on protective gear and followed the workers deep underground. The air was thick and hard to breathe. Old machines groaned and sparked. Han noticed that many safety barriers were missing or broken. At the bottom of the mine they met more workers. These ones looked even more tired. Their eyes were red from the dusty air. How long do you work each day? Bin asked. 14 hours, replied a worker with gray fur. Sometimes 16 if quotas are not met. When do you rest? 6 hours sleep. Then back to work. Han made careful notes. He also took pictures with a small device. They spent 3 days visiting different mining worlds. Each one was the same. Workers living in poor conditions. Dangerous equipment. Families separated for months at a time. On Mining World 3 they ate dinner with a family of workers. The food was thin soup and stale bread. My daughter is sick, said worker Nala. But the medical center is only open 2 hours per day. I cannot take her during work hours. What happens if you leave work to take her to the doctor? Han asked. Pay is cut. Sometimes job is lost. Bin felt anger rising in his chest. But he kept his voice calm. How long has she been sick? 3 weeks. She gets worse every day. After 5 days of visits, Han and Bin returned to the main station. Director ZYX was waiting in his office. His metallic face showed impatience. Well, he demanded. When will the workers return to their jobs? We need to make some changes first, Han said quietly. Changes? ZYX laughed harshly. The only change needed is worker discipline. Bin activated a holographic display. Pictures appeared in the air. Broken safety equipment. Sick workers. Children who had not seen their parents in months. Your current system is costing you money, Bin explained. Worker injuries slow production. Sick workers cannot work efficiently. Unhappy workers make mistakes. These problems are minor, ZYX insisted. Han pulled out his notebook. Last year you lost 47 days of production due to equipment failures caused by poor maintenance. Worker injuries cost 6 million credits in medical expenses. Mistakes in mining operations destroyed valuable equipment worth 12 million credits. ZYX's red eyes widened. How do you know these numbers? We calculated them from your own records, Bin said. Fix the working conditions and these costs disappear. Plus, Han added, happy workers are productive workers. On Earth, companies that treat employees well often see 30% increases in productivity. For the first time, ZYX looked interested. 30%? At least, Bin confirmed. Workers who feel valued work harder and make fewer mistakes. 3 weeks later, the new agreements were announced across all 12 mining worlds. Work shifts were reduced to 10 hours. Safety equipment was repaired and updated. Medical centers now operated 12 hours per day. Workers could visit their families once per month. Most importantly, workers now received a small share of mining profits. When production increased, everyone benefited. Within 2 months, productivity on all 12 worlds had increased by 35%. Other mining companies across the galaxy began requesting similar reviews. Director ZYX sent a personal message to Han and Bin. Your methods are strange but effective. Treating workers like people instead of machines has improved our profits significantly. The galaxy was beginning to learn that human empathy was not weakness. It was a powerful economic tool. The war fleets hung in space like dark storms waiting to break. Ships from 3 great powers faced each other across the void. The hegemony's massive battleships gleamed silver in the starlight. The Free Worlds Alliance had spread their faster ships in attack formation. The Neutral Zone Collective's defensive barriers hummed with deadly energy. On the Confederation's emergency station, diplomats worked desperately to prevent disaster. This would be the first galactic war in over 1,000 years. Billions would die. Ambassador Yu Park stood before the main view screen. He was the newest member of the human diplomatic team. His partner, Min Seo, checked her translation device one more time. Traditional negotiations have completely failed, announced Chancellor Vex. His blue skin was pale with worry. Each side refuses to compromise. War seems inevitable. Emperor Valdris of the hegemony sat at the negotiation table. His golden armor made him look like a statue. His voice was cold as space. Our territorial claims are non-negotiable, he declared. The hegemony will expand as planned. Anyone who stands in our way will be destroyed. Admiral Kor of the Free Worlds Alliance slammed his fist on the table. His cybernetic implants glowed with anger. The free peoples will never bow to tyranny, he growled. We would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Mediator Zeph of the Neutral Zone Collective's many tentacles writhed nervously. The collective seeks only to protect our borders, Zeph said in multiple voices. But we will defend ourselves with all necessary force. Chancellor Vex looked exhausted. 17 diplomatic sessions have failed. Military commanders report their fleets will begin firing in 72 hours. You raised his hand quietly. Before the shooting starts, we would like to try something different. Emperor Valdris laughed harshly. Another human with impossible dreams? Your species is naive about the realities of power. Maybe, Min said calmly. But we would still like each of you to hear some voices. Voices? Admiral Kor asked suspiciously. From your own people, you explained. We have spent the last month traveling to worlds across all 3 territories. We collected messages from ordinary citizens. Propaganda will not change our military positions, Emperor Valdris snapped. These are not propaganda, Min said softly. These are just people talking about their lives. She activated the holographic display. A young woman appeared in the air. She had kind eyes and work-worn hands. My name is Sarah, the woman said. I grow food on Hegemony Colony 7. My son just turned 5 years old. He loves to watch the transport ships fly overhead. He says he wants to be a pilot someday. The woman paused, then continued. I heard there might be a war coming. I just want my son to grow up safe. I want him to see those ships carrying food and medicine, not bombs. The message ended. Another one began immediately. An old man with mechanical tools spoke from what looked like a repair shop. I am Engineer Doak from Free World Station 12, he said. I fix things that break. Ships, computers, life support systems. I have been doing this for 40 years. His voice was tired but gentle. Young people come to me to learn. They have such bright futures ahead of them. They want to build things, create things, explore the galaxy. Please do not take that away from them. Message after message played. A teacher from the neutral zone talked about her students' dreams. A farmer from the hegemony worried about feeding his family. A scientist from the free worlds hoped to discover new medicines. Emperor Valdris shifted uncomfortably in his chair. These personal stories are irrelevant to strategic military concerns. Are they? You asked quietly. The messages continued for 2 hours. Parents worried about their children. Workers feared for their jobs. Elderly people remembered the last war and its terrible cost. A young soldier appeared on screen. He wore hegemony colors but looked barely old enough to fight. My name is Private Len, he said nervously. I joined the military to serve my people. But I have been thinking about what war really means. My girlfriend lives on a free world's planet. Her brother serves in their fleet. The soldier's voice broke slightly. If we fight, I might have to kill people I care about. People who are just like me with families and dreams. I will do my duty, but I wish there was another way. Admiral Kor was staring at the screen with wide eyes. That boy is barely 18. The same age as your own son, Min said gently. Similar messages came from soldiers in all 3 fleets. Young people who wanted to serve but hoped they would not have to die. Mediator Zeph's tentacles had stopped moving. These voices, they speak of unity, not division. Because that is what most people want, you explained. Safety for their families. Future for their children. Peace to build and grow and explore. Emperor Valdris stood up abruptly. This is emotional manipulation. No, Min said firmly. This is reality. These are the people you are asking to sacrifice for territorial disputes. The room fell silent. On the view screen, the 3 war fleets continued their deadly dance. You activated his communication device. We have sent these same messages to every world in all 3 territories. Citizens across the galaxy are watching them right now. Within hours, something unprecedented happened. Demonstrations erupted on hundreds of worlds. Citizens demanded their leaders find alternatives to war. Parents refused to let their children report for military service. Workers went on strike rather than build more weapons. The pressure from below was overwhelming. Phone calls flooded government buildings. Public squares filled with protesters carrying signs reading "Choose life, not war," and "Our children are not your chess pieces." Emperor Valdris received an urgent message from his home planet. His wife was leading a group of mothers demanding peace talks. Admiral Kor's own military advisors reported that half their fleet crews were requesting transfers to non-combat roles. Mediator Zeph's collective consciousness was flooded with thoughts of peace from millions of minds. "You have manipulated our entire populations," Admiral Kor accused. "We gave them information," you replied calmly. "They made their own choices." Emperor Valdris looked at the messages still playing on screen. A small child was drawing pictures of stars and planets, dreaming of visiting them someday. "Perhaps," the Emperor said slowly, "we should discuss alternatives to military action." Within a week, all three powers were back at the negotiation table. This time they came with genuine commitment to finding peaceful solutions. The voices of their own people had reminded them what they were really fighting for. The galaxy learned that day that humans had a weapon more powerful than any battleship. They could make the personal cost of conflict impossible to ignore. 5 years had passed since humans first joined the Galactic Confederation. The diplomatic academy on Nexus Prime looked very different now. Where once cold metal halls echoed with formal speeches about laws and territories, warm conversation rooms buzzed with discussions about feelings and personal stories. Ambassador Na Song walked through the academy corridors. She was now Director of Diplomatic Relations, the highest position a human had ever held in galactic government. Students from dozens of species filled the classrooms, all trying to learn what had become known as human-style diplomacy. In Classroom 7 she stopped to watch a lesson. Professor Jean Park stood before a group of young diplomats. On Earth, Jean had been a simple teacher. Now he trained the galaxy's future negotiators. "Today we practice empathy exercises," Jean announced to his mixed class of aliens. "Partner with someone from a different species. Learn 3 personal things about them before discussing any business." A young Zephyrian raised one of her forearms. "Professor Jean, I do not understand the purpose. Why must we know about their family problems?" "Because," Jean said patiently, "when you understand what someone truly cares about, you can find solutions that protect those things." Na watched as the students struggled with the exercise. A Gulak trader kept asking about profit margins instead of personal interests. A Vorthak diplomat tried to read his partner's mind rather than listening to their words. A young Krillian warrior seemed confused why anyone would care about feelings during negotiations. In the next classroom, advanced human psychology was being taught by Dr. Min Lee. She had been a counselor on Earth before becoming one of the galaxy's most requested diplomatic trainers. "The key to human negotiation," Dr. Lee explained, "is something we call emotional intelligence. Humans naturally understand that logic alone does not drive decisions. Fear, hope, pride, and love often matter more than facts." A Trosian student raised his metallic hand. "But emotions are weakness. They cloud judgment." "Actually," Dr. Lee said with a smile, "emotions provide information. When someone is angry, they are telling you something important has been threatened. When someone is sad, they have lost something they valued. These emotions guide us to the real issues." The Trosian looked confused. His species had suppressed emotions for thousands of years. Learning to recognize and use them was nearly impossible. Na continued her tour, visiting the simulation rooms where students practiced real scenarios. In one room, students were trying to solve a trade dispute between mining worlds. The traditional approach would focus on resource allocation and profit sharing. But the human-trained instructor pushed for deeper questions. Why does Colony A want exclusive mining rights? What happened in their history to make this important? The students discovered that Colony A had once been abandoned by their government during a crisis. Exclusive rights meant security and control over their own fate. The solution became not just about mining contracts, but about creating long-term security guarantees. In another room, students worked on a territorial conflict. Instead of drawing new borders on star maps, they were interviewing holographic representations of citizens from both sides. "My family has lived here for 6 generations," one hologram explained. "This is not just territory. These are the graves of my ancestors." "But we need this space for our growing population," replied another hologram. "Our children have nowhere else to go." The students struggled to find solutions that honored both the ancestral connection and the housing crisis. It was much harder than simply dividing territory in half. Na smiled as she remembered her own early days. Back then, galactic diplomacy had been simple. The strongest species imposed their will on weaker ones. Negotiations were about power, not understanding. Now everything had changed. In the executive council chamber, she attended a meeting about the latest crisis. The hegemony was having internal problems. Different provinces wanted independence. "Send human mediators immediately," requested Emperor Valdris. He was the same leader who had once dismissed humans as naive dreamers. "Our own diplomats cannot solve this. They only make it worse." "What approaches have you tried?" Na asked. "Traditional methods. Increased military presence. Economic incentives. Legal arguments about constitutional law. And the results?" Emperor Valdris looked embarrassed. "More provinces join the independence movement every day." Na nodded. "We will send a team. But they will need full access to all provinces. They must speak with ordinary citizens, not just government officials." "Of course," the emperor agreed quickly. "Whatever the humans need." After the meeting, Chancellor Vex approached Na privately. His blue skin showed the pattern of deep respect. "Your species has transformed our galaxy," he said quietly. "Conflicts that once led to wars now end in handshakes. Species that hated each other for centuries have become allies." "We just listen to people," Na replied. "It is not complicated." "But it is," Chancellor Vex insisted. "Other species try to copy human methods but they fail. They ask the right questions but do not truly care about the answers. They memorize techniques without understanding the heart behind them." Na knew this was true. She had watched countless alien diplomats attempt human-style negotiation. They would ask about families and personal histories, but only as a strategy to gain advantage. They missed the most important part: genuine caring about the other person's well-being. "There is something we must discuss," Chancellor Vex continued. "Some species are beginning to fear human negotiators." "Fear us? Why?" "Because you are too effective," he explained. "Corporate leaders say humans can convince them to accept deals they never intended to make. Military commanders complain that after meeting with humans, they lose the will to fight. Politicians claim humans manipulate them into caring more about citizens than power." Na considered this. "Are we manipulating them?" "I do not think so," Chancellor Vex said. "I think you are simply showing them parts of themselves they had forgotten. But the result is the same. Humans have become the most powerful negotiators in the galaxy. Not through force or threats, but through understanding." That evening, Na stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. Ships from dozens of worlds moved peacefully through space. Trade flowed freely, old enemies worked together on scientific projects. A young aide approached her with the daily reports. "Director Na, we have 17 new requests for human mediators today. The Outer Rim colonies want help with resource disputes. The Crystal Collective needs assistance with internal faction conflicts. Even the warrior clans of Nexus 7 are asking for human negotiators." Na took the reports and smiled. "Schedule them all. We have work to do." Across the galaxy there was a new saying among diplomats: "Never underestimate a human negotiator. They will learn your life story, understand your deepest fears, and somehow convince you that their solution was your idea all along." The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology or military might. It was their ability to see others not as opponents to defeat, but as people to understand, and that understanding had become the foundation of galactic peace.